Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. It's William Bellamy. Please, if you like what I have to say, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you disagree, go ahead and hit dislike and tell me in the comments what you disagree with, and we can have a civil discussion about it. But I'm going to cover some current events in this video. But I also want to tell you it's been about a week since I posted the video, and it's because I wanted to go back and rethink the purpose of this channel. Because I spent a lot of time on the election, because that was kind of low-hanging fruit, and there's a lot of information. So from this point on, the only thing I'm going to talk about elections is during current events. And I'm going to get more into the politics minus the election, but talk about what they're actually doing, not doing, talking about the evils of socialism and communism and Marxism, because if you can tell from my prior videos, that's something I truly feel about. I'm also going to get more into veterans issues. In fact, I'm trying to get in contact with Gary Linderer, who was a LRP and Ranger in Vietnam, to try to do an interview with him. I'm also in the middle of talking to a doctor of psychology who has worked at the state hospital in Missouri and has a lot of experience in both forensic psychology and actual treatment, so that we can sit down and talk about what happens if we actually fund effective mental health and drug rehabilitation. Can we reduce our prison population, and can we reduce the criminality tendencies of some people by doing that, as opposed to putting people that really need treatment as opposed to incarceration? Can we reduce our prison population that way? And I will come at it from a former juvenile delinquent and corrections officer, and she will come at it from a person who's conducted these treatments and these therapeutic sessions with a doctor as a doctor of psychology. I think it'll be a pretty good debate, and I think there won't be a lot of disagreement. I think it'll be a lot of trying to explain to you why funding these programs is very important. With that being said, if you like what I have to say and you want to see this in the future, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you disagree, go ahead and hit dislike and tell me why in the comments. We'll have a debate about it. We'll go ahead and move into current events. So the election. So the Supreme Court case from Pennsylvania that was filed by Mark Lee and Sean Parnell apparently has been punted by the Supreme Court. Make of it what you will. But the election as it stands, there's still issues in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona. I foresee President-elect Joe Biden. Now, with that being said, we do need to go back and investigate these allegations, because there are some very legitimate allegations that have been made. Those need to be investigated. We need to fix this before we go into the election cycle for 2022 or 2024. And whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, you should want these to be investigated, so that you know come January 20th, whoever gets sworn in has legitimately won. And so that we don't go through these issues again in 2022 or 2024. I don't think it's too much to ask. I think we as the American people are owed this by our government. So it should not be a matter of money. It should not be a matter of time. It should be a matter of conducting thorough investigations to ensure these things don't happen again. When you have a county in a certain state where 71% of precincts are reporting issues, that needs to be investigated, because if that's the regular way they do business, then there's something wrong with it. So let's investigate it. Let's figure out what's going on. It shouldn't matter what side you're on. What should matter is finding out what actually happened and how we fix it. And as the United States, in the year 2020, we should be able to correct this in the next 2 years before midterms in 2022. That's really all I'm asking for. I think that's all we should demand as the American people, is to ensure our elections are fair and honest, and the American voices are heard. Let's move to lockdowns. So the COVID vaccine should be available here in the short future. And a priority from what I've seen is going to be healthcare workers and those most vulnerable, which I have no problem with. I think that's the way it should be. I think COVID will become very similar to the flu, where it's something we will deal with from here into the distant future. I personally have had 2 exposures, so the disease is real. I'm not going to say it's not. But it is not the end of the world, and we should stop treating it this way. Any state such as Michigan, which has already been, the lockdowns the governor has signed has already been ruled to be unconstitutional. Then you have California, you have New York, where they're creating more lockdowns, but these are proving to be unconstitutional. And oh, by the way, some of the same governors that are signing these executive orders for lockdowns are the ones that are violating them. They're the all-time hypocrites in the history of politics. Rules for thee, but not for me. What I will say is, when as a governor you put sheriffs in a position where they have to decide, am I going to follow the Constitution or am I going to follow my governor? Because some of them have already come out and said they're not going to enforce the lockdowns. And in the end, they're not enforcing the lockdowns because it's not the right thing to do. And some of them have already been proved to be unconstitutional. In the case of Michigan, the Supreme Court has ruled on that. In the case of New York, and the argument is, well, my executive order expired. So I'm going to sign a new executive order and you can take it back to the court system. But in the military, I learned, never give an order you know isn't going to be followed. And even in the military where you follow orders, you don't follow illegal orders. So for a governor to sign an executive order that they know has already been ruled unconstitutional, but they're going to update it and sign it again, what does that say about some of the people that are being elected? Do we need to impeach them? Do we need to hold referendums and vote them out? And no, this is not armed protesters outside their houses, outside governors' mansions. This is use the systems that are in place to vote them out. Use the systems in place to demand a referendum. Use the systems in place for your senators and your state houses to vote them out, to impeach them. And then we move forward as a nation. But we do it the right way. COVID is dangerous. The last numbers I saw were over 230,000 people in the United States alone have died. And you hear more people in the United States have tested positive than anywhere else. We've also tested more people. So out of a roughly 330 million population, I am willing to bet with unscientific data, this is just my guess, at least half our population has had COVID, whether they tested positive or not. Some, it came across as a mild sinus or allergy issue. Some, it came across as the flu. Some tested positive. I've had allergy and sinus issues my whole life. At least 3 or 4 times a year. I'm laid out on the couch with sinus medicine and hoping the sinus infection ends. But one of those this year could have been COVID. Let's be realistic about this. Let's follow the guidance with social distancing and wearing masks. I know it sucks, but it is what it is. And let's reopen our country. Let's put our kids back in school because that's where they learn. There's issues with educational retention from online learning. There's a whole generation of special needs kids that benefit from being in schools. They can become adults that have their own lives. But it's only if we keep them with educators that are trained to teach them. We need to reopen our schools. We need to reopen our businesses. We need people to use common sense and follow the mask and social distance rules. But we need to reopen as a country so that we don't fail economically, which is a great segue into China. The disease came from Wuhan, China. The country that has the most to gain from the United States failing is China. They've made inroads not only in the United States, in a developing world, in Africa and South America. They are putting systems in place to become the economic powerhouse. Now, I'm going to do another video following this on China, so I'm not going to go that deep into it. But what I will say is, Google Chinese professor, and you'll hear about a guy. I'm actually going to read his name off because those that know me really well know that I failed Cantonese. I did. I failed. I couldn't learn how to speak Chinese, so I'm going to look at my notes to see his name, but it's Professor Di Dongxi, or Di Dongsheng, who came out and talked about the amount of infiltration the Chinese government has managed into the United States government, into United States companies. Because here's a secret. All these companies with manufacturing in China, they're supporting the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Why? Because the CCP controls everything in China. If that business is going to operate, that is based on the desire of the CCP to have them operate. Because on a moment's notice, the CCP can shut them down and transfer all of their assets to another company. And this isn't even talking about the nefarious activities of North Korea and Macau. Go ahead and look it up. Hong Kong and Macau were two kind of autonomous regions inside China. Well, Hong Kong, you can watch the news and see what happens. Macau is still in place, and that's where the North Koreans launched their covert activities and counterfeit money and alleged meth super labs. These are the things that are going on in China. Now, I'm going to limit it with those comments because I'm going to do another video on China itself and what's going on. And I'm going to end it on this note. What I will say is question the government. Question what you're being told. Question where you are in your life and where you want to be. If you like what I have to say, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you dislike it, go ahead and hit dislike and tell me why in the comments. We'll have a civil debate. I would like to thank everybody that subscribed because the channel's growing a lot faster than I thought it would. But share with your friends. Check out my Instagram, my Twitter, my Parler account, which I just started. If you really want to be a part of this, the biggest thing you could do is like, subscribe, share with your friends, and stop and think. Go ahead and go in the comments and tell me what you think. All right, everybody, be safe. Take care of your families. Everybody have a good evening.